Thank you so much for joining us for our Inspire Conference Special Education Edition. We're so grateful to have you here to learn from our amazing and knowledgeable presenters. This session will be followed by a live Q&A period.
Good morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you today. We're going to talk about supporting the remote learning environment for all learners. This part of the session is recorded, but we do have a live Q&A, and they'll be at the end. And obviously, there also will be Q&A during the chat, so feel free to enter questions and comments in the chat, and we will be responding during that time. So I am Kelly Etheridge, and I am a proud member of the I2E team, as well as the Director of Teaching and Learning at St. Paul's Episcopal School in Mobile, Alabama. Love to run, love to play golf, not very good at it, but I love to play with my family. And best downtime, unwind time for me is to sit in a hammock or lay in a hammock and read a book. Feel free to reach out to me either through email or LinkedIn, or of course my Twitter handle. Notice that there is it's Ether Edge. So even though it spelled Etheridge or sounds like Etheridge, there's just all E's, so it's Ether Edge. All right. So first things to think about as you're going through and taking notes and listening to everything that we say, just kind of tips of different ways that you can take those notes is draw a triangle and write 3 important points from today's session that you draw out of it. You can also draw a square and write anything that squares with your thinking or anything that you agree with. And then you can also draw a circle and write down anything that that's still circling around in your mind, or you have questions about and that you would want to add to the chat or talk to someone about later. So our session today, just a quick overview, as we look at how we can support the remote learning environment for all of our students, we'll be looking at these 3 overarching kind of concepts. We'll explore what students need from us. We'll evaluate ways to simplify and examine the value of varying content. So first off, though, let's get introduced. So if you could, in the chat window that you will find if you select the chat icon, share your favorite ice cream. And I'll go ahead and share mine, which is completely not available anymore. So my favorite ice cream of all times is Coffee Toffee Crunch, which is a Ben & Jerry brand or version that has been discontinued, which makes me very sad every time I think about ice cream. Not every time, I guess, but it does make me sad. So after that is cookie dough's pretty good, what I can usually get now. So I'll just wait a minute so everybody can share their favorite ice cream. All right, so definitely 2 ways for us to stay connected today in the meeting chat as we are talking in this call. It's a great way to stay connected for today and communicate with us. And then after this, of course, be sure to post questions in the team and it's continue to engage with us after this. We would love that. Okay, so going to get started on the first hot topic of this session, which is that just how to best support our students when we're learning from home. The last 6 months have been interesting. That's probably a good word to use. If someone had told me last year this time that I would be going remote and all my kids would be at home and I would be at school teaching, and then we'd all be at home, and then we'd all be hybrid, and all the different things that we've done, I would have laughed hysterically and said, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. And yet here we are discussing learning environments we had never even anticipated a year ago. I've said to many of people, I'd never heard the phrase remote learning until March. And now here we are talking about it and exploring it and finding different ways to do it. So, of course, the first thing to think about is that, and just to validate, is that the actions are different. Remote learning is impacting students and parents and teachers in a variety of ways. Put simply, it's challenging. It's challenging in all kinds of different ways. And we have, because the actions are so different and foreign to us to some degree, we miss the structure of school. Our students miss their friends and their teachers, and we teachers miss our students. How students interact with each other online is very different. How they take notes, how they participate. When you're in class and you're taking notes, that looks very different than when you're on your laptop or your device and you're trying to take notes, especially if you're trying to take notes on the same device. All of those things, in person, virtual, have different feel. Calls can be chaotic sometimes. You can't see what the student sees. The student can't see what you're trying to describe if you're in different places. It's a challenge. And there's so many different tools and learning materials that it can be overwhelming and frustrating. And so it's just good for us to acknowledge that and think about and realize that it's different. And so we have to look at it in those different ways. Additionally, as I've already said, students are feeling really disconnected. And we are feeling disconnected from them. We're missing those in-person interactions, and they feel lonely and isolated. And so we have to start, I feel like, with that view, because we need to, of course, acknowledge the social and emotional well-being of our students. And supporting our children in the remote learning environment is a marathon. It's a marathon for the teachers that are providing the resources. It's a marathon for the students who are looking at this in a different way, and it's a marathon for the parents who are trying to find and bolster up their children as they navigate this. It requires consistent action over a long period of time. It also requires to stay attuned to our students' feelings and their energy levels to determine when they've reached their max. We have a thing at our school called the tap out. And if you ever feel like you need to tap out, you're supposed to go find someone that you can tap on the shoulder and say, I need your help. I need somebody else to take care of this right now. And so that's definitely one of the things we've kind of be attuned to. One way for us to see or to be aware of that in tune to our students and children is to look for signs of stress. And when we see those signs of stress, for them to tap out. Emotional outbursts, missed assignments, confusion about lessons, withdrawal from activities. These are all things that are showing us that our students are overwhelmed and they need a break. And so we definitely want to find ways that we can do that. And one of the best ways that we can do that actually is proactive is some mindfulness activities. So if we can create an environment and experiences throughout the day where our students are practicing mindfulness, then they are going to feel more comfortable and be able to get through some harder things than they would if they're just kind of pushing and never take a break. And so one easy one that we could do right now is just put your feet firmly planted on the floor. Have your sit up straight, with your back straight, hands on your knees, and then just take a deep breath in, count to 3, to fill up even further, and then a deep breath out, emptying out all the air that you breathed in. You can repeat that one more time. Breathe in. Fill up your lungs even more than you thought you can. And then breathe out. These little moments throughout the day can be proactive proactive ways to help our students manage their social and emotional well-being. It helps them just kind of center and ground themselves. A moment in a hammock, just a little bit of rocking back and forth. Anything where we can just quiet our mind for a minute and get away from it. And it's nice to have something in the morning, have in between different classes, have those little breaks, and then have something at the end. That will be a proactive way to help with manage the stress. But sometimes it's just really enough is enough, and that is okay. So when you see that enough is enough, just stop. Take time for the breaks when needed. And if you have to, just stop for the day and regroup once you and your student has decompressed. That is okay. The work will be there. You can get to it later. You reach out to a teacher and they're going to say that is totally fine. And most important, the social and emotional well-being of your child is where we need to focus. So that leads us into executive functioning. Executive function is a group of skills that include working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control. Our students have to use these skills every day, but they may have trouble managing them at times, especially if they're stressed, especially if there's a lot being thrown at them, new stuff, different things. And so students who struggle with executive functioning can have trouble focusing, they can have trouble following directions or even hearing the directions, and then managing their emotions. We can help our students improve their executive functioning with a number of skills in a different variety of ways. So a couple of things that we can do is we can help them by creating predictability. So if we create clear, consistent expectations that are predictable and that students can anticipate, then they will have a better chance of exercising their executive functioning skills. Additionally, as we've talked about, those brain breaks, establishing and encouraging those brain breaks throughout the day will help students manage their time better. Having a daily schedule and creating that schedule of, okay, between 8 and 9, we're going to do X. And then we're going to take, and really probably between 8 and 8:30, we're going to do X. And then at 8:30, we're going to take a break. And then we're going to start back at 8:45. And having those elements of a schedule that you can look to as a guide. You can create those schedules in Outlook, Gmail, there's a to-do app you could use, planner, physical planner, anything that helps with that structure would be great for your students. You can also try different schedules. So first, then schedule. So first we're going to read this passage. Then we are going to look at the questions and answer them. Visual schedules that can be seen on a planner that allow for students to visualize and see the different times that they're going to be working. And then tactile schedules, something that they can hold on to, that flip through, anything that helps them, guides them. You can also create reminders for assignments or big activities that are coming up. So if you know that there's going to be a test on Thursday, you can go ahead and create a reminder on Wednesday to study for that test. Set timers to guide your students' work for specific time periods. So if there isn't much, if you've got the schedule, but then I know I get lost in time, so I'll not realize that I've been sitting for longer than I need to be. Setting a timer to guide and for 30 minutes we're going to do this. That timer goes off and we know now to transition to the next thing. And then definitely want to utilize your tech tools that are there to help. So Focus Assist on the computer will allow just to focus on the task at hand and get rid of all the different bells and whistles and announcements that can pop up and alerts that can pop up. Reading View in the Edge browser is an excellent way to have to read a website to get rid of all of the extra things that are on the website, the ads and anything that can be distracting. And then Immersive Reader that is in all kinds of different resources, Flipgrid, OneNote, Teams, Edge browser. Just it's in so many different resources, but that read aloud immersive reader so that the tech tools can read to your student. The next thing to think about is that remote learning, of course, requires the use of technology, which is wonderful that we've been able to actually continue school and that we didn't have to just completely shut down and shutter everyone to the point that we couldn't continue learning. But I know that for many teachers and parents, it can feel scary and intimidating, anxious about integrating that technology and helping students use the technology because feel like you might not be as tech savvy as your learners. The reality is that just because students are digital natives does not mean that they're tech savvy learners. A lot of resources that we are asking students to use, they've never used before. And so the fact that we now are asking them to use it does not mean that they're going to be able to figure it out and know and feel comfortable with it immediately. Just like we're still learning the technology, they're learning that technology as well. So take a breath and know that your students are learning too, and it's okay for you to say, I don't know how that's going to work. And I don't know what the answer is. But also to ease their stress and their anxiousness about using the tools, and to help parents at home, so I'm talking to teachers at the moment, to help parents at home who are trying to support their learners. If you can, it's wonderful for you to provide at a glance specific instruction documentation for students to follow when they have a new tool that you want them to use. A lot of the sites and resources that you could implement, I know Teams has it, Google Suites has, Google Classroom has it, Flipgrid, they all have documentation that you don't have to create it yourself. They have resources that you can send along with the students to give them step-by-steps of how to create an account, how to access the account, where to find information, that kind of thing. Will be super helpful to ease that stress for students. Additionally, short video guides are wonderful because some of us are visual and some of us are auditory and some of us need all of it. And so having short video guides that students can look at are wonderful ways to support students and their parents at home. But remember, as I already said about the at-a-glance documentation, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many great guides out there that video tutorials already on YouTube, different things that you could point your students to so that they know how to use the tools, but that you don't have to add one more thing to your plate as the teacher of one more thing that you have to do and create for your students. So as we're talking about tools, not only do we want to support our students and help them and guide them to getting those resources and learning how to use them, but we also want to simplify the tools we use as much as possible. So one way that we can do that, because and I'll back up a second and say because it can be overwhelming if we have too many tools at once. So one way that we can do that is to consolidate materials into one location. If we can house most, if not all, of what we want our students to access in one place, then that is going to provide them with a lot less stress and ease of that predictability of, I know if I go to this tech resource, I'm going to find the materials that my teacher is providing me. It eases that stress, transition, and it helps everyone. Lots of great resources out there in order to organize your stuff in one place. Microsoft Teams, OneNote Class Notebook, Google Classroom, Canvas, other LMSs. Allow you to organize all of your materials in one location that will help you and your students and the parents. While hopefully you can introduce one tech tool at a time, or you can consolidate everything in one place, you want to think about, okay, I can't just use one tech tool. There's different things that meet with different needs. And so if I'm going to use more than one tech tool, I want to introduce one at a time. Once the student has learned the best practices of that tech tool and how to use that one, say Flipgrid, for example, want to use Flipgrid as a video diary of what the student's learning and how they're progressing and answering questions, and that is wonderful. You can have the students learn how to just simply record, then the next time they can learn how to add stickers and different things or screen share. And then once they have mastered that, maybe you want to move to OneNote Class Notebook where students can actually write a response, a short essay or a longer essay, depending on the grade level, that they are to respond to a question. And so you wouldn't want to introduce all of that at one time. You would want to transition in from one resource to the next when you know that students are comfortable. So I'll pause here and have you all think about that. So for my teachers, if you could, and so I've paired up the questions, for my teachers, if you could only use one tool, what would it be? And then I'll let you have 3 and you can answer that. If for parents, observing your students, if there was one tool that you would want teachers to always use and that your students feel really comfortable using, what would that tool be? And then if they could have 3 tools, what are the 3 top ones that they seem to enjoy, that they seem comfortable with, and that you feel help support their learning the most? And I'll pause here to let you all respond in the chat. All right. Okay, so moving on to simplification. So we think about, talking teachers again, we must evaluate our content and our curricula to determine what is most essential for students to learn. We heard this back in the spring. We know this to be true. As much as we love every bit of what we teach, in a remote setting, we cannot teach it all. And so we have to find ways to simplify our content. And really, many have found that the good old adage, less is more, really holds true with regard to remote instruction. So when we're streamlining our content, we can think about it in 2 different ways. The first way is, what is the enduring understanding students need to have at the end of this lesson or unit? So really honing in on, if I'm looking at this unit on poetry, these are the essential components that I have to cover in this unit, and the extras of identifying iambic pentameter and different things like that don't relate right now. That's not the most important thing. That's not the skills that they need to know. They need to understand how to read a poem and find figurative language in it and draw out the meaning. So that's one way that you can look at it to help hone in on what the content needs to be focused on. The other thing that you can do is ask yourself, if I only had 10 minutes with my students, what is the most crucial information for me to give them and for them to retain? Obviously, we have more than 10 minutes, but it really is a helpful thing to ask ourselves and give us a focus for what we're going to guide them on and how we're going to instruct the students and what resources we're going to give them when we're looking at, okay, 10 minutes, this is what they need to know. This is the crucial information that I would want them to hold on to. These questions can guide us and focus our learning, our lessons, on whether they are synchronous or asynchronous, which leads us into our next topic, which is that we're going to chunk those lessons. So once your course objectives are identified and the learning activities that you've created are designed, you need to focus on the strategies for delivering that content and communicating the learning plan and expectations to your students. So best practices, brain research talks about that. If you are delivering synchronous lessons, really and truly, your students, after 10 minutes, they're moving on. So we have to create lessons and experiences where every 10 minutes we are doing something emotionally relevant for our students in order to keep their attention. This is from John Medina's Brain Rules book. So to create those segmented lessons in a live lesson, you can pause at different designated times and give them something emotionally relevant to do with what you've been discussing by asking students to answer questions or ask questions, share their thoughts. You can give them a poll and take a quick poll of what they're thinking and what they are answering a question that you've asked that's related to the content that you've shared. You can have a discussion. They could pause and have small group discussions, do breakout rooms on a live session where they have small group discussions and they talk with a partner or partners about what they've learned. Or you can even use just simple emoji, where in the chat window they share an emoji or a GIF that really matches how they feel and their comfort level with the material that they're learning. For asynchronous sessions, best practices, studies show that the optimal length of instructional videos is 6 minutes. So if we think about that, you don't want to have a video that's longer than 6 minutes. You have to, but you also don't want to have 10 videos. So if you don't want to chunk them out into 6-minute videos and have those tiny little separate videos for them to watch, you can break up those that video, the longer video, with pauses where students are asked questions and they can reflect on them. So that would be at the, in that 6-minute mark-ish time, you either just stop and say, I'm asking a question here. I want you to pause the video and think about this. Or you can use tools, tech tools that are available that allow you to insert questions into a video. So you can, if you use Microsoft Stream, you can add forms questions to a stream video. You can add Google Forms to videos. A YouTube video editor allows you to put questions in. Edpuzzle and even TED Ed, you can add questions to video segments. If you're a parent and you're thinking, but I can't do that, and my child has a really long video to watch, then I recommend you have a timer and you set that timer for 6 minutes and you tell the student, your student, okay, when the timer goes off, I want you to stop, I want you to pause and either talk about what you learned, write about what you learned. You could do the triangle, circle, and square that we talked about at the beginning of our session. And then they can, when they're ready, they can start the video back. But to think that students are going to just naturally stop the video on their own is setting them up for failure. I know my child, if he sees the video is 30 minutes, I have to watch the 30-minute video. It has to be done. I have to do it all, and I can't stop. And so encouraging that and helping set that up for him is really important. We also want to scaffold our activities and lessons in a way to help students structure their learning and their pace, but also with time management, helps students plan those lessons and completing assignments. But it also, if there's a really big task in front of a student that seems super overwhelming, say they have to create a PowerPoint presentation about a topic, or you're going to want them to do a video about a task or teaching a concept, and they may feel really overwhelmed by that big task. If you can break it down into smaller chunks for students and help them find success in those smaller chunks, it will give them the confidence to keep continuing on to work and towards the larger task that's required. So some ways that you can do this: you can create checklists for students that you break down the big task into, say they have to make a video, you break down the big task into creating a storyboard, or doing research, then creating a storyboard, then finding the writing a script, or finding the resources that will go, the pictures and video that will go into the actual finished video, giving them that checklist of how to reach the final product. Step-by-step guides, be similar to a checklist. You can also have reflection questions throughout. So if you know that the end product is a very detailed essay, then you can ask students to do reflection questions throughout that help them build to that final exam essay. And you can also create samples for your students. So you could have a sample that shows the student what the end product would look like, and what a quality final product is, so that they know they have a guide and they can see what that is like. So I'm going to let you pause again and let you think about what lessons do you feel that you have that would benefit from scaffolding. And so I'm just going to give you a couple minutes. You, of course, can share out if you want, or this can be something that you just post, you just keep on your paper privately, but just give you a minute to think about what lessons or units you feel would benefit from some scaffolding. Okay, all right, so getting close to the end, I want to talk really quickly about how students process information and how we can help them with the resources, because if they were in the room with us, they would see all of our movements and our voice inflection, and they would know, and you would point to things in the room that you wanted them to look at and guide them. And when they are remote, if you're doing asynchronous sessions or even synchronous sessions, it's just different. It's a different experience. And so when our students, because our students are so varied and they all process information in a variety of ways, we need to make sure that we are providing instructions for our students multimodally. So some will need to hear it, some will need to read it, some will need to hear it and read it. And we can use a variety of methods to help students see the purpose of what they are learning. We can provide written instructions, a video or audio announcement, and a daily or weekly reminder about what the learning goals are. Then it will help them be able to achieve those tasks much faster or better than if they only have it in one mode. So one of my new tools that I've really enjoyed using lately is Prezi Video. It allows you to have you on the camera, but also have images and text that you transition through. And so you've got the written prompts showing up as well as you talking at the same time, which I really like. I also love using OneNote to share instructions because I can include the typed instructions. I can record an audio file of me reading those typed instructions, and I can even embed a video all on the same page, providing the resources for the students in one spot. Within the multimodal communications, it's important to reinforce those core objectives repeatedly. So reminding students where you want them to get to, what the goal is, what you're wanting out of them to do, reinforcing those core concepts that we want to, that we're focusing on, so that we can connect yesterday's learning to today's learning and today's learning to tomorrow's. And so that they're constantly, again, that's that scaffolding, that's that transitioning or spiraling, that students can see that, oh, we did that yesterday and that matters because today we're doing this and it's helping me understand that better. We also want to remember to offer variety in our teaching strategies, our experiences, and our assessments. It's really tempting to stick with what we're comfortable with. And so, but I encourage you to be mindful about the not only the length of your lessons and the multimodal instructions, but also to think about the variety that you're giving. So asking students to do the same thing every day, watching a video, answering questions, watching a video, answering questions, it's going to create disengagement really quickly. But if you were to push beyond comfort zone a little bit and offer students with a variety of learning activities and experiences, one day maybe instead of watching a video, they read something and then they do a video, or you have them draw a sketch of what they learned, or you have them, instead of answering questions, they summarize their understanding of the material to teach to someone else in a recording of audio or a video recording. These allow for students to have varied experiences. It allows for that differentiated instruction and assessment so that you get to see and experience the strengths of your students, and they feel like there's an area that they can express themselves in. And it provides a time and space to nurture student creativity and self-expression. And with that, we are at the end of the presentation, and now we will move to our live Q&A.